Greetings, noble viewers, and welcome to this most esteemed channel, the Tabby Diaries. I am Precious McFluffy-Butt, a tabby of unparalleled wisdom and the rightful ruler of this domain. By my side, though oft fumbling in her pursuits, is Mildred the Mediocre, a witch whose spells are as unpredictable as the wind itself. Together we traverse the realms of magic, mischief, and mayhem, chronicling tales both wondrous and absurd. Pray, dear friends, bestow upon this humble channel your likes and subscriptions, that you may be among the first to witness each new chronicle as it unfolds. Join us on this journey, and may your whiskers twitch with delight. On this day we speak of the tale of the Blundering Emperor. Deep in the forests of Worcestershire, in a cozy yet chaotic cottage behind an overgrown hedgerow, Mildred the Mediocre and I were minding our own business. The morning had been quiet, with Mistress Mildred attempting to bake bread that turned into an unfortunate soup, and I napping in a sunbeam, when the enchanted crow arrived. "Urgent news!" it squawked, dropping a scroll onto the table. Mildred, always eager to meddle in things far beyond her capabilities, snatched it up. "What is it now?" I asked, though my query sounded more like a curious meow. "Oh, Precious!" Mildred gasped, her eyes wide with misplaced determination. "It's a plea for help from the lands of Eastern Albion. They're under siege by a mad emperor. His name is Vladimir Blunderov, and he's wreaking havoc across their lands." "Blunderov?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Sounds apt." According to the crow's scroll, Blunderov, ruler of the neighboring empire to the east, had launched an ill-conceived campaign against the peaceful lands of Albion. His motives were unclear, his strategies haphazard, and his understanding of basic geography questionable. The result was chaos. Villages burned, alliances strained, and his own soldiers befuddled by his orders. "We have to stop him," Mildred declared, leaping to her feet. "I'll use my magic to bring peace." I flicked my tail. "Mildred, you can't even bring peace to this cottage." But my protests, as always, were ignored. By midday we were on our way to the eastern lands, with Mildred carrying her unreliable spellbook and me perched atop her satchel, resigned to the inevitable disaster. The war-torn lands were a stark contrast to our quiet forest. Smoke rose from distant villages, and refugees huddled along the roadsides, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. As we approached the heart of the conflict, we encountered Blunderov's soldiers, disorganized and bewildered, many of them arguing over a map. "Where are we supposed to go?" one demanded, pointing at a scribbled note. "The Emperor said north," another shouted. "That's a lake, you dolt." I couldn't help but snicker. This Blunderov sounds as competent as Mildred. "Don't compare me to a tyrant," Mildred huffed, waving her wand. "Watch this, Precious. I'll send them packing." She cast a spell meant to conjure a storm, but instead it produced a gentle drizzle. The soldiers looked up, shrugged, and continued arguing. "Impressive," I said dryly. We eventually found ourselves in Blunderov's war camp, a sprawling mess of tents and wagons. The man himself sat on a makeshift throne, surrounded by sycophants who looked equally baffled by his presence. Blunderov was as bumbling as his reputation suggested. His armor didn't quite fit, his crown sat askew, and his proclamations were riddled with contradictions. "We shall march east," he bellowed. "No, west." "Wait. What's that direction with the mountains? Someone get me a map." Mildred stepped forward, her crooked hat lending her an air of eccentric authority. "Emperor Blunderov, I am Mildred the Magnificent, here to negotiate peace." Blunderov squinted at her. "Magnificent, you say? I don't trust magicians." That's rich coming from a man who doesn't trust compasses, I muttered. Blunderov outlined his grand strategy, which involved vague notions of conquest and securing resources he couldn't define. His generals exchanged worried glances as he rambled about restoring the glory of the empire without offering specifics. "This is madness," Mildred whispered to me. "No, this is incompetence," I corrected. "There's a difference." Determined to make a difference, Mildred proposed a magical demonstration to convince Blunderov of the futility of his campaign. "Allow me to show you the consequences of war," she said, flipping through her spellbook. Mildred's spell was supposed to conjure an illusion of the devastation wrought by conflict. Burned villages, displaced families, the cries of the innocent. Instead, it summoned a swarm of bees. The camp erupted into chaos as soldiers and advisors fled in all directions, swatting at the angry insects. Blunderov toppled from his throne, shouting, "Who let the bees in?" "I may have miscalculated," Mildred admitted as we ducked behind a wagon. "You think?" I snapped, batting away a bee. Despite the failure of her spell, Mildred refused to give up. That evening she devised a new plan, to infiltrate Blunderov's tent and enchant him into a more reasonable leader. I, of course, was tasked with the dangerous part, sneaking into the tent and planting the spellbook. "Why do I always get the hard jobs?" I grumbled as I slinked through the shadows. Blunderov was asleep, snoring loudly enough to shake the tent. I placed the spellbook beneath his pillow and retreated, hoping for the best. The next morning, Blunderov emerged from his tent with an uncharacteristic look of clarity. "I have seen the error of my ways," he proclaimed. "War is not the answer." The camp erupted in cheers, though I suspected they were more relieved to avoid further mismanagement than inspired by his newfound wisdom. Mildred beamed with pride, convinced her magic had worked. "What did you cast, anyway?" I asked. "Nothing complicated," she said. "Just a spell, to make him dream of kitten and peace." "Oh, that's going to last all of 5 minutes," I scoffed. "That so-called emperor will eat those kittens by first light," I said mournfully, but relieved with knowledge that magic kittens cannot be harmed. Mildred was good in that way. She never caused harm to her animal creations. With Blunderov's campaign effectively ended, we made our way back to our forest cottage. The lands of Eastern Albion continued their fight, and during the lull in fighting began to fortify their defenses, their people resilient, despite the hardships they had endured. Mildred, as always, took full credit for the resolution. "Another crisis averted by Mildred the Magnificent," she declared as we reached our door. I sighed, curling up in my sunspot. Let's hope the next crisis is far away from here. But knowing Mildred, I wouldn't count on it. Thank you, noble viewers, for embarking on this journey with me, Precious McFluffy-Butt, and my ever-bumbling companion, Mildred. If you've enjoyed this tale of mischief and magic, do bestow upon this video your likes, and subscribe to ensure you don't miss the next chronicle. Together we shall continue unraveling the chaos, one spell at a time. Fare thee well, and may your days be filled with whiskered wisdom and enchantment.